So my friends, welcome to a new crypto update video. Bitcoin has fallen below the $90,000 mark and things are really not looking good. At the moment, the market only knows one direction, and that's down. Nvidia is now just around the corner. Tomorrow evening, or rather tomorrow after the market closes, it's finally happening. On Thursday, the old labor market data will be released. That will also give us a direction for the time being. The markets are just completely... And Bitcoin is really approaching our final support level. We'll definitely take a closer look at that in today's video. Of course, we'll also talk about the altcoins, the stock markets, etc., and so on. And tonight at 7 p.m., we'll be live on YouTube again. So please don't miss it, or go ahead and mark it in your calendar. Before we get started with the video, as always, feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course, join the free Telegram talk and signal group. If you're interested in updates, news, and signals, feel free to join there. You'll find the link down in the video description. And if you're still looking for an exchange where you can trade all of this, feel free to sign up with my partner exchange, WEEX. But as I said, we're currently in a trading phase, so please be careful. Just because there are bonuses or something like that right now, please don't put your entire fortune on the line here. It's really important for me to say that again. Only register if you really want to learn trading and also have the necessary time for it. Alright, then I'd say let's get started. $90,000 for Bitcoin. Yeah, that happened pretty quickly and the sell-off kept going deeper and deeper. So by now, we actually have to assume, as we mentioned in yesterday's video and also brought up in the live stream, that this entire movement since our all-time high here at $125,000 could be a larger wave A. That fits much better at the moment. Because, as I said, this ABC actually played out perfectly. The D was already so-so. And the C movement is actually going way too deep at the moment, you have to say. But we're still at least on the way to filling our little vector down here, or rather over here. Let's quickly switch to the daily time frame and take a look at it. There we can see it much more clearly. Now let's turn on the vectors as well. There we see that we still have a huge vector down to 87,000 US dollars here. Last night we dumped all the way down to 89,100 US dollars, so there's not much left. And below that there's also a blue vector. So up to the 85,000 US dollar mark, that's currently the range I'm still willing to consider. So apart from this buying zone up here, that's really the maximum. Otherwise, of course, I also posted it in the Telegram group yesterday. Technically speaking, we're not in a bear market yet. That's true, and I agree with everyone on that, because for that to happen, we'd have to break this upward trend down here at 74,000 US dollars. Yes, but what I think a lot of people always misunderstand a bit is, when should you sell your crypto? In a bear market, selling crypto doesn't make sense anymore. So why not anticipate a bear market beforehand, or at least consider it, and sell most of your crypto for a profit instead of waiting until 74,000 US dollars to say, hey, cool, now we're in a bear market and the hopium is over. Sorry. Yeah, it just didn't turn out the way I wanted. It doesn't do you any good, and it doesn't do me any good either. In the end, it's just false hope, and at the moment, I think that's also a bit of the problem in the space. And at the same time, I thought, am I really seeing this right now? Let's take a look at the funding rates for Bitcoin. They're all positive. Some of them are even going beyond the normal range. Over the past few hours, funding has shot up again to extremely high levels. That can't be true. Bitcoin drops below $90,000 and the funding rates just keep rising and rising. What we saw was exactly the opposite when we were going up in the bull run, or at all-time highs when the funding rates were negative. Now we're seeing exactly the reverse. People keep going long, and that's why we keep seeing on the heat map that new clusters are forming to the downside. Let's switch to the daily view and take a look at how things are looking now. Here again, we already see the next cluster right here between 88,000 and US dollars. Of course, there's a lot more to be gained on the upside. But the problem is simply that when we have funding rates like these, which keep rising non-stop and everyone is trying to long the dip, that's not a good setup. Let's quickly switch over to the FatWatch tool, because yesterday there were a few statements that really caught my attention. I think it was Weller, who touched a bit on the labor market, and he doesn't believe that any data could come out that would make another rate cut necessary. That sounds more like the labor market data coming on Thursday could be very positive. So we're still at 46% for a rate cut, so it's not looking good. Sorry guys, but I can't give you any mega hopium at this point, just so you can hope the bull run will simply continue. That's not who I am, never was, and it just doesn't help. We're currently in an absolute downtrend. If this is the A wave going down here, then exactly the scenario we just talked about in the live stream will happen, that we'll get another rally to the upside. Bitcoin at 85,000 and then shooting up towards 114, 115,000. That's absolutely possible, only to then dive into the bear market, but then for good. And for that, we don't need a lower low, because anyone can tell you that the bear market starts down here or is confirmed at 74,000. Seriously, if we're down there, then okay, welcome to the bear market. And now what are you doing with your position? It just doesn't make any sense. We can discuss that, of course. That's why I wrote a longer message in the Telegram group again yesterday, just to explain my stance on the bear market and also to point out the zones where I would consider entering again. At the moment, don't over leverage yourselves. Don't try to catch this entire bottom or go all in on longs. Just leave it, please. It doesn't make sense at this point. All right. Then I'd say let's move on to the altcoins. Ethereum is slowly but surely approaching the zone where I'd like to get in. So as you can see here, let's quickly turn on the vectors here as well. We have vectors going down to $2,600. That's currently a zone I'd really like to see reached, around $2,600 to $2,700. The vectors there are filled. If those break as well, yeah, sorry, then we're probably down here, as I also said live, at 1.8. But for now, that's the last anchor point I currently see for Ethereum. Strangely enough, it's also running a bit more accurately there. We can really say A, B, C, D upwards, and now the E downwards. So Bitcoin is performing significantly weaker, and we can see that at the moment. Considering how dramatically Bitcoin dropped yesterday, the altcoins, in quotation marks, have still held up relatively well. That's why I still assume so. So this zone down here, $2,800 to $2,500, that would be a perfect point to reach in the next few days. As I said, Nvidia is still coming up, and if Nvidia delivers, then everything we're seeing right now is really just a shakeout. But even for Ethereum, the funding rates are rising. It's incredible, just incredible what we're currently seeing in the market. Solana, yes, Solana has actually held up relatively well in the last few hours. You have to say yesterday as well. It held up relatively okay here in this zone, but still, let's also take a quick look at Solana's funding rates to see how things are looking at the moment. Solana is actually still doing okay, but even here we see exactly the opposite. So from negative to positive, and that's happening with falling or only slightly rising prices. That's not what we want to see. For the sake of completeness, vectors, we actually don't need to worry about them right now. We filled the green one here, which was important. The wick down to $125. I would just really like to see that. So for me, that's the zone, $125. If we go down there, that would also be a long option for me at this point. Otherwise, it doesn't look good, really. It doesn't look good at all what the markets are doing right now. Then I would say, let's quickly take a look at, there was something else I wanted to show. Litecoin, right? Litecoin, because Michael just posted about it in the Telegram group. Litecoin actually still looks good as one of the few that do. Of course, you also have to say from a daily perspective, we still have a bit of room to the downside. So ideally down to $89 would be great, maybe even down to $84 and then let it go. But Litecoin still looks really, really strong as one of the few projects out there. All right, traditional markets. The gold short is performing perfectly. So the short position, perfect at the moment. The target is definitely between $3,700 and $3,500. And I'm not going to discuss anything else for now. Sure, I said yesterday that I'd like to fill the inefficiency. And yes, we've filled it here now. Okay. So I was a bit early with my statement, but still $3,700 to $3,500 would be absolutely perfect. We can see things are going down a bit in times of crisis, or rather during these crisis times right now. And what I mean by that is, as I said, Nvidia is coming up. We still have a few earnings reports. The labor market, all of that is coming this week. So this week we'll also decide, yeah, whether it's a bear market or not. That's just how it is, I really have to say. And gold looks absolutely terrible. Silver is finally moving down as well now. It still has the SMA as support, so that still looks somewhat okay. But let's take a look at the daily time frame here. Yeah, RSI completely, well, it just barely missed because we didn't have a new high, but still, I'll let that count as a divergence. Now dropping down towards $43 would really be Perfect then. Dollar sideways phase, euro sideways phase, not much is really happening. I think by Thursday we'll definitely see a lot more activity, as is traditional. The DAX is completely dead in terms of price action. I think the DAX has the most boring price action of all since May. So over 6 months of sideways movement. Okay, Dow Jones is falling. Yeah, there's slowly starting to be a bit of pressure there too. Nasdaq is still holding up solidly. So I'll put it this way. As long as we stay above this level, everything is still fine. 24,200 points. Otherwise, I also assume, if we take a look at the daily time frame, that we could probably even drop down towards 23,000 US dollars. So that would be the next step. S&P 500, no higher high. That's what we talked about last week. Only up to the 0.786 level. And now it's going down, which means we need to adjust our targets here a bit, or rather move our FIB over a little. It's tricky. $6,100 would probably be perfect at the moment. Then we would have this retest of this range here, where there was also a lot of price action in this price signal between 6,145 and just under 6,000.10. Otherwise, let's quickly look at the US Tech 100. Same story. How does the Russell look? It looks just as bad. And the volatility index, it's slowly going up. We've talked about that as well. We still have a few vectors lying around up here that we should also fill. We should also fill those. All right, then I'd say that's it from my side. Otherwise, D-Wave is tanking, and Circle at the moment. Where's Circle? Where's Circle? Here, same story. Circle is on its way to $67. The market is bullshit. The market is such total bullshit. But all right, we can't change it anyway. We can't change it at the moment. So why get upset? All right, that's it from me. We'll hear from each other again tonight at 7 p.m. for the YouTube, Kick, and Twitch live stream. I'm definitely looking forward to your altcoin requests. And tonight, we'll definitely have much, much more time. That's it from me then. I wish you a nice, relaxed, and of course, successful day. Just be careful. And that's it from me. We'll talk again later. Until then, ciao, ciao, and as always, stay crypto.